Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Forgotten Milestone. Dominic Reeves stared at the empty living room, decorated with half-hearted streamers and a store-bought cake with Happy 40th written in blue icing. 6 chairs sat empty around the dining table, each place setting meticulously arranged that morning while his family was supposedly running errands. The grandfather clock in the hall struck 8, its chimes echoing through the vacant house. 3 hours. He'd waited 3 hours for them to return. Dominic pulled out his phone, scrolling through unanswered texts to his wife, Allison, and their 2 children, 19-year-old Cassandra and 16-year-old Preston. "Where are you guys? The food's getting cold. Is everything okay? Please call me." He'd even called his sister-in-law, Bethany, who answered with obvious discomfort before claiming she had no idea where they might be. The lie was so transparent Dominic almost laughed. 2 decades ago, Dominic had been a struggling contractor with ambitious dreams. Now he was the founder and CEO of Reeve Construction, a multi-million-dollar commercial development company that had built half the shopping centers in the county. Despite his demanding schedule, he never missed a single birthday, anniversary, or school event. Family had always come first. Until now, apparently. His phone buzzed. A text from Preston. "Sorry, Dad. Mom said we're running late. Be home soon." More lies. Dominic had installed a tracking app on Preston's phone months ago after catching him sneaking out to parties. According to the app, his son was currently at the Harbor View Hotel, a luxury resort 20 miles away. Dominic poured himself 3 fingers of bourbon and opened Instagram. He hadn't checked social media all day, too busy preparing for a celebration that would never happen. The first post in his feed stopped him cold. It was from Cassandra's account. A group photo in what appeared to be a lavish hotel ballroom. His daughter, son, wife, and at least 30 other people, friends, extended family, and several of his business associates, all dressed in formal attire, raising champagne glasses around an elaborate 3-tiered cake. The caption read, "Mom's 37th birthday bash. Hashtag best night ever." Dominic zoomed in. Behind Allison stood Theo Bradford, his wife's tennis instructor, standing much too close, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. As Dominic scrolled through more photos, the pieces fell into place. His wife's sudden interest in tennis 6 months ago. The late-night strategy sessions with her new business partner. The mysterious weekend conferences. The gradual emotional distance. His phone buzzed again with a notification from Venmo. A request from Cassandra Reeves, $1,800. The description read, "Mom's 37th birthday, your share." No apology. No explanation. Just a bill. Dominic stared at his phone, a cold rage crystallizing in his chest. 20 years of marriage. 2 children he'd raised and loved. A life built from nothing through backbreaking work and sacrifice. And this was what it amounted to. He finished his bourbon in one burning swallow and opened his laptop. First, he transferred half the money from their joint accounts to a new account under only his name. Then he called a locksmith. By midnight, when his family finally returned home, laughing until they saw his car in the driveway, the locks had been changed, the security codes reset, and Dominic was just getting started. "Dad," Preston called through the door. "We can't get in. Dad's probably asleep," he heard Allison say. "Use your key." "I am. It's not working." Dominic sent Cassandra a Venmo payment of exactly $1 with a single word in the description. "Congratulations." Then he turned off his phone, closed his eyes, and began a plan. Chapter 2, Paper Trail. The following morning, Dominic sat in the office of Valerie Ortiz, the best divorce attorney in the state. Her reputation for ruthlessness had earned her the nickname the Executioner among the legal community. "They spent the night at the Bradford residence," said Dominic, sliding a folder across the desk. "My wife and children. After I changed the locks." Valerie opened the folder, examining the photos inside. Images captured by the private investigator Dominic had hired 3 months ago when his suspicions about Allison first arose. "You've been planning this for some time," Valerie observed. "I wanted to be wrong," Dominic replied. I gave her every opportunity to come clean. Instead, she escalated. The photos showed Allison and Theo in various compromising positions over the past months. Lunch dates, clandestine meetings in hotel lobbies, a passionate kiss in the parking garage of her office building. The most damning evidence is financial, Dominic continued. She's been siphoning money from our joint accounts for months. Small amounts at first, then larger transfers. Over $200,000 in total. Valerie raised an eyebrow. To Mr. Bradford? To a shell company he created 6 months ago. Ostensibly a wellness retreat business they were launching together. Dominic's laugh was hollow. The only service they provided was to each other. And your children? Cassandra knows everything. She's been helping her mother cover her tracks, probably in exchange for financial support. Preston, I'm not sure how much he understands. Valerie reviewed the documents methodically. Your wife organized this birthday party at the Harborview? That must have cost $64,000, Dominic finished. She invited 48 guests, charged them each $1,800, then pocketed the difference. The actual cost per person was around $750. So she profited from her own birthday party, while excluding me from it entirely. Dominic leaned forward. I want everything, Valerie. The house, the business, full custody of Preston. And I want Allison and Theo to pay for every lie they've told. Legally, we can. I'm not just talking about legal remedies. Dominic's eyes were cold. I built my life from nothing. I can rebuild again if necessary. But I will not let them walk away unscathed. Valerie studied him carefully. There are lines we cannot cross, Mr. Reeves. I understand. Dominic stood. Please prepare the divorce papers immediately. I'll handle the rest. As he left the office, his phone buzzed with a text from Allison. We need to talk. Where are you staying? He didn't respond. Instead, he called his most trusted employee, Luis Mendoza. I need information on Theo Bradford, he said without preamble. Everything you can find. Tax records, property holdings, business dealings. Legal or otherwise. Consider it done, Luis replied. And your family? I don't have a family anymore. Dominic ended the call and headed to his next appointment with the bank manager who had approved Allison's home equity line of credit without Dominic's knowledge. By evening, Dominic had frozen every account Allison had access to, removed her as an authorized user on all credit cards, and instructed his company's payroll department to redirect his salary to his new private account. When he checked into the Four Seasons under a false name that night, he had one more call to make. Solomon, he greeted his old college roommate, now a cybersecurity expert. I need a favor that you can never tell anyone about. Chapter 3, Ghost Protocol. 2 days later, Dominic sat in a nondescript rental car outside Bradford Tennis Academy, watching his wife arrive for her lesson. From his vantage point in the parking lot, he could see Theo greeting her with a kiss that lingered far too long for instructor and student. His phone buzzed with an incoming call from Preston. Dad, where are you? Mom's freaking out. She says you've emptied the accounts. Not emptied. Secured. Dominic corrected. How are you doing, son? I'm scared. Cassandra's saying you've lost your mind. Mom's been crying all day. Preston's voice cracked. What's going on? Ask your mother about her tennis instructor, Dominic said evenly. Ask her why she threw a $60,000 birthday party without inviting her husband. Ask your sister why she thought it was appropriate to bill me for it afterward. Silence hung on the line. I didn't know about the party until that night. Preston finally said, his voice small. Mom said you were away on business. When I saw you weren't there, I tried to call, but Cassandra took my phone. A pang of sympathy pierced Dominic's armor. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this, Preston. Can I see you? Please. Not yet. Things need to play out first. Mom went to the police this morning, Preston blurted. She reported you as a missing person. Said she's afraid you might hurt yourself. Dominic nearly laughed. Did she mention that she's been having an affair? That she locked me out of my own house? She told the police you've been acting erratic for months. That you've been paranoid, accusing her of things. Preston hesitated. They seemed concerned. So that was her play. Paint him as unstable. Build a narrative that he was having some kind of breakdown. Preston, listen carefully. I'm perfectly fine. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months. But your mother is trying to get ahead of the story. What story? The one where she's been cheating on me with Theo Bradford for at least 6 months. The one where she's stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars from our family. The one where your sister has become her accomplice. Another silence. I saw some texts on Mom's phone. Preston admitted finally. Between her and Mr. Bradford. They were not about tennis. Keep this conversation between us, Dominic instructed. For now, just go along with whatever they say. Act normal. Can you do that? Yeah. Preston agreed quietly. Are you coming home soon? Not to that house. But I promise we'll see each other soon. Dominic ended the call as a police cruiser pulled into his driveway across town, visible on the home security app on his tablet. Right on schedule. He watched through the home's exterior cameras as 2 officers approached the front door. Solomon's hack into the home system gave Dominic complete remote access while preventing anyone else from viewing the feeds. The officers knocked, then peered through windows. One of them spoke into his radio, presumably reporting that the residence appeared empty with no signs of disturbance. Dominic switched cameras to view the backyard, where the officers were now examining the doors and windows. Finding everything secure, they eventually returned to their vehicle and departed. His phone immediately rang. Allison calling for the 20th time that day. He declined the call and opened the text from Solomon. System in place. All communications intercepted. Location tracking active on all devices. Bank alerts set up. You'll know every move they make. Dominic replied. Time for phase 2. He started the rental car and drove to his next destination. The office of Marlene Kovacs, the private investigator who had been documenting Allison and Theo's affair. I need more, he told her without preamble. Not just their relationship. I need everything on Bradford. Business dealings, gambling habits, tax situations, legal troubles, former relationships, the works. Marlene nodded. My sources indicate he's not as successful as he appears. The academy is hemorrhaging money. He's leveraged to the hilt. So he needs my wife's money, Dominic concluded. Or rather, my money. Exactly. And there's something else. Marlene handed him a file. Bradford has a pattern. This is the 3rd wealthy married woman he's become involved with. The previous 2 divorced their husbands, liquidated significant assets to invest in ventures with Bradford, then found themselves abruptly single and significantly poorer within a year. Dominic flipped through the documentation, his jaw tightening. He's a professional predator, essentially, but he's never been charged with anything. He's careful. Everyone makes mistakes, Dominic said, closing the file. Find me his. That evening, as Dominic worked from his hotel room, an alert from Solomon's tracking system pinged his laptop. Allison, Cassandra, and Theo were all converging on the local police station. Right on cue, his burner phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Reeves? This is Officer Daniel Hartman with the Metro Police Department. Your wife has reported you missing. She's quite concerned. I'm not missing, Officer Hartman. I'm voluntarily absent. Would you be willing to come to the station to confirm that in person? Just to clear things up. Of course, Dominic agreed pleasantly. I'd be happy to explain exactly why I've chosen to distance myself from my wife. An hour later, Dominic walked into the police station, immaculately dressed in a tailored suit. As he entered, he saw Allison, red-eyed and playing the part of the distraught wife, with Cassandra at her side. Theo lurked in the background, trying to appear concerned yet detached. The performance ended the moment they saw him. Dominic, Allison gasped, her manufactured distress instantly replaced with shock. Officer Hartman looked between them, confusion evident. Mrs. Reeves, your husband appears to be fine. I never said he wasn't. Allison recovered quickly. I said he was missing. He disappeared without a word, cleaned out our accounts. Actually, Dominic interrupted, I'd like to file a report of my own. Financial fraud, identity theft, and adultery. Though I understand that last one isn't technically a crime anymore. As Allison's face paled, Dominic smiled for the first time in days. The game had begun. Chapter 4, Countermoves. What exactly are you accusing your wife of, Mr. Reeves? Officer Hartman asked, leading Dominic to an interview room while another officer remained with Allison, Cassandra, and Theo in the waiting area. Dominic placed a thick folder on the table. My wife has been systematically transferring funds from our joint accounts to a shell corporation established by her lover, Theo Bradford. She forged my signature on a home equity line of credit application. She used my business contacts to solicit donations for her birthday party under false pretenses. Officer Hartman leafed through the documents, his expression growing more serious with each page. These are serious allegations. They're documented facts, Dominic corrected. My attorney has already begun civil proceedings, but I believe some of these actions constitute criminal fraud. And you haven't been coercive or threatening toward your wife. I changed the locks on my house after discovering her infidelity and financial deception. I protected my assets by transferring funds to secure accounts. I temporarily ceased communication while gathering evidence. None of those actions are illegal. The officer studied him. Why not just divorce her and be done with it? Because this isn't just about a failed marriage, Dominic explained coldly. My wife and Mr. Bradford have been systematically targeting my finances, my reputation, and my relationship with my children. Now they're attempting to paint me as mentally unstable to gain advantage in upcoming legal proceedings. I won't allow that narrative to stand. After nearly an hour of detailed questioning, Officer Hartman escorted Dominic back to the waiting area, where Allison immediately launched into a performance. "Dom, we've been so worried," she cried, attempting to embrace him. "Why would you disappear like that? Why would you lock us out of our home?" Dominic stepped back, avoiding her touch. "Officer Hartman has copies of the evidence now. Allison, I suggest you find a good criminal defense attorney." Theo stepped forward. "Look, man, I don't know what you think is happening." "Mr. Bradford," Dominic cut him off, "I've documented 37 instances of you and my wife engaging in extramarital activities over the past 6 months. I have records of $217,000 transferred from my family's accounts to your shell corporation. I know about the other women, Patricia Wilson and Eleanor Greer. I know your pattern." The color drained from Theo's face. Cassandra inserted herself between them. "Dad, you're embarrassing yourself. Mom and Theo are business partners. And you," Dominic turned to his daughter, "billing me $1,800 for a party I wasn't invited to? That was a special touch." "It was a surprise party," Cassandra stammered. "You were supposed to—" "Save it," Dominic interrupted. "The guest list is in that folder. My name isn't on it." Officer Hartman cleared his throat. "I think we've established that Mr. Reeves is not missing or in danger. The rest of these matters appear to be civil disputes." "Precisely," Dominic agreed, "which is why I'll be leaving now. Please inform Mrs. Reeves that all communication should go through our respective attorneys moving forward." As Dominic walked toward the exit, Allison rushed after him. "Where are you going? What about Preston? He needs his father." "Preston is welcome to contact me directly anytime," Dominic replied without slowing. "Unlike the rest of you, he hasn't lied to my face or stolen from me." Outside, Dominic found Preston waiting in Allison's car, his expression a mixture of relief and anxiety. "Dad," Dominic hugged his son tightly. "I'm okay, Preston. This situation is complicated, but I promise I'm okay. Mom said you're having some kind of breakdown. Your mother is trying to protect herself," Dominic said carefully. "There are things happening that you don't fully understand yet." "Then help me understand," Preston pleaded. "Everyone's lying to me." Dominic glanced toward the police station, where Allison, Cassandra, and Theo were emerging, their faces thunderous. "Not here," he said quietly. "I'll text you later. We'll meet somewhere private." As Dominic walked to his rental car, he felt Allison's eyes boring into his back. The wounded spouse act hadn't worked with the police. She would try something else next. He was counting on it. Chapter 5. Bait and Switch. The following morning, Dominic met Preston at a diner 20 miles outside town. His son looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. "Mom and Cassandra were fighting all night," Preston explained, sipping the coffee Dominic had ordered for him. "Cassandra keeps saying they need to neutralize you before the divorce." "Neutralize?" Dominic raised an eyebrow. "Her words, not mine. They don't know I can hear them." Preston lowered his voice. "I've been recording their conversations." Dominic felt a surge of pride, mixed with sadness that his son had been forced into such a position. That shows initiative, but be careful. I don't want you putting yourself at risk. Is it true? About Mom and Mr. Bradford? Dominic nodded slowly. I'm afraid so. And the money? Also true. They've been planning this for months, possibly longer. Preston stared into his coffee. What about Cassandra? How long has she known? Based on text messages Solomon recovered, at least 4 months. She was promised a condo in Malibu and tuition for graduate school in exchange for her cooperation. She sold you out for a condo? Preston looked horrified. People rationalize betrayal in many ways, Dominic said gently. Your sister probably tells herself, I deserve it somehow. What happens now? Now you go back home and pretend we never had this conversation. But I want you to pack a bag with your important belongings, documents, favorite possessions, anything irreplaceable, and hide it somewhere secure. Why? Because things are going to get worse before they get better, Dominic explained. And I need to know you're prepared. After Preston left, Dominic called Luis. It's confirmed, Luis reported. Bradford has approached 3 of your major clients, claiming you're having personal issues that might impact upcoming projects. He's offering to connect them with more stable contractors. Perfect, Dominic said. Proceed with the next phase. By noon, Dominic had met with each of those clients personally, explaining that a family situation was being weaponized against him by a competitor. He provided documentation of Bradford's financial difficulties and pattern of targeting wealthy married women. All 3 clients not only recommitted to Reeves Construction, but agreed to feed Bradford false information about their supposed concerns with Dominic's stability. The trap was being set. That afternoon, Dominic received a text from Solomon, A&T accessing financial records, looking for hidden accounts. They wouldn't find any. The money Dominic had secured was now flowing through a complex network of temporary holding companies established years ago as a contingency plan. Dominic had always believed in preparing for worst-case scenarios, a habit developed during his impoverished childhood when his own father had abandoned the family, leaving them destitute. His next stop was the Harbor View Hotel, where Allison's extravagant birthday party had been held. The event manager, Howard Lassiter, greeted him warmly. Mr. Reeves, I was surprised you couldn't attend your wife's celebration. She said you were called away on business. That's actually why I'm here, Howard. I recently discovered some irregularities in the billing for that event. Howard frowned. Everything was paid in full. Mrs. Reeves handled it personally. I'm sure she did. Would you mind sharing the actual cost of the event? For my records. After some hesitation and a gentle reminder about the substantial business Reeves Construction had brought to the hotel over the years, Howard pulled up the invoice, $36,422. And guests were charged $1,800 each, Dominic noted. For 48 attendees, that's $86,400. Quite a profit margin. Howard looked uncomfortable. I wasn't aware of any guest contributions. No, you wouldn't be. That was handled privately. Dominic smiled reassuringly. I'm not blaming you, Howard, but I would appreciate copies of all documentation related to the event. For my divorce proceedings. The word divorce opened all necessary doors. By the time Dominic left, he had complete records of every detail Allison had planned, including her specific instruction that Dominic was not to be admitted to the party under any circumstances, even if he somehow learned about it. Back in his hotel room, Dominic reviewed the day's developments with Solomon via secure video call. They're getting desperate, Solomon reported. Allison tried to access your email accounts, but couldn't get past the new security. Bradford called 3 banks trying to find your new accounts. Cassandra has been contacting your former employees, looking for dirt. And Preston, clean so far. No suspicious communications. He seems to be keeping his word. Dominic nodded, relieved. What about the offshore transfers? Bradford made initial inquiries this morning. Our false trail is in place. The Cayman account looks legitimate, complete with believable banking history. If he tries to access it, we'll have him on attempted financial fraud, Dominic finished. Keep monitoring. I want to know the moment they take the bait. 3 hours later, the alert came. Bradford had attempted to access the fabricated offshore account using credentials purposely left on a decoy laptop in Dominic's home office safe, the combination of which Allison knew. Dominic immediately called Valerie Ortiz. "We've got him," he said without preamble. "Attempted unauthorized access to a financial account. The system captured his IP address, device information, everything." "Do you want to press charges immediately?" Valerie asked. "Not yet," Dominic replied. "Let's see how deep they'll dig their own graves first." Chapter 6. The Turning Point. A week into Dominic's calculated absence, the first cracks in Allison's coalition began to show. Solomon's surveillance revealed increasingly tense conversations between Allison and Theo, primarily centered around money. "She's burning through cash faster than expected," Solomon explained during their morning briefing. "The credit cards are all declined now. Bradford Academy payroll is due tomorrow, and he's short by almost $30,000. Has he tried accessing the Cayman account again?" "3 more attempts," Solomon confirmed. "Each one meticulously logged. He's getting sloppy. Last night, he spent 4 hours searching for ways to bypass banking security protocols. His search history is incriminating." Dominic smiled grimly. "And Cassandra? She's demanding her promised condo and tuition money. Apparently, she's already signed a lease based on her mother's guarantees." Everything was proceeding according to plan. Financial pressure was the first step in fracturing their alliance. Dominic's phone buzzed with a text from Preston. "Mom's meeting with some guy today. Says he's a reputation management consultant." "What does that mean?" "It means they're planning to destroy my public image," Dominic replied. "Can you get a name?" 20 minutes later, Preston sent a photo of a business card. "Fletcher Mills, crisis management specialist." Dominic immediately relayed the information to Luis, who set to work investigating Mills. By afternoon, they had a complete profile. Former tabloid journalist turned PR fixer, specializing in crafting sympathetic narratives for wealthy clients facing public scandal. His usual approach is to place strategic stories with former media colleagues, Luis reported, painting clients as victims while subtly undermining their opponents. "Perfect," Dominic murmured. "Have Marlene approach him." Same cover story we discussed. That evening, Marlene Kovacs met Fletcher Mills at an upscale bar across town, posing as a wealth management advisor concerned about a client being manipulated by an unscrupulous contractor named Dominic Reeves. The seeds of doubt were planted. Meanwhile, Dominic arranged to meet with several of Allison's closest friends, women who had attended the birthday party and received the subsequent Venmo requests. He approached each meeting with calculated vulnerability, expressing confusion and hurt rather than anger. "I just want to understand what happened," he told Jennifer Palmer, Allison's maid of honor from their wedding. "One day, I'm planning my 40th birthday. The next, I discover my wife is celebrating without me and charging our friends for the privilege." Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. "Allison said the party was her idea, but that you approved everything. She said you were handling the finances. Did you think it was strange that I wasn't there? She told us you had an emergency project crisis, that you were devastated to miss it." Dominic nodded thoughtfully. "And the $1,800 charge? Did that seem reasonable for a birthday dinner?" Jennifer hesitated. "It seemed high, but Allison said it included a charitable donation to that wellness retreat she's launching with her tennis coach." "Interesting." Dominic slid across his phone, showing Jennifer the actual hotel invoice. The real cost was about $750 per person. As Jennifer's expression shifted from confusion to dawning comprehension, Dominic knew he had another ally. By week's end, he had spoken with 12 of Allison's closest friends, systematically dismantling her social support network with nothing but documented facts and gentle questions. The isolation strategy was working. On day 10 of his strategic absence, Dominic received an urgent call from Preston. "Dad, they're planning something big. Mr. Bradford's moving into our house tonight. Mom says they're accelerating their timeline because of your aggressive tactics. They're meeting with some doctor tomorrow morning." "What kind of doctor?" Dominic asked, already suspecting the answer. "A psychiatrist. I heard Mom practicing what she's going to say. She's going to claim you've been abusive and paranoid for years, that you're having some kind of breakdown. Trying to build a case for an involuntary psychiatric hold," Dominic concluded. "Bold move. What do we do?" "We? Nothing. You maintain your cover. I'll handle this." Dominic paused. "Actually, there's something you can do." Make sure you're present for that meeting if possible. Record everything. I will, Preston promised. Dad, be careful. After ending the call, Dominic immediately contacted Valerie. They're escalating to psychiatric claims, he informed her. I need preemptive measures. Already in motion, Valerie assured him. I've filed for emergency hearing regarding the financial fraud. Judge Wentworth is sympathetic. He's experienced similar tactics in his own divorce. More importantly, I've arranged for you to meet with Dr. Eleanor Chin tomorrow morning. She's a respected forensic psychiatrist who can evaluate you and document your mental stability. Excellent, Dominic approved. And the financial trap? Bradford accessed the fake Cayman account 4 more times today, each attempt more aggressive than the last. He's trying to transfer funds now, not just view balances. We have everything documented. Perfect timing, Dominic said. Prepare the injunction papers. We move tomorrow. That night, as Dominic finalized details with his team, he received an unexpected video call request from Cassandra. After a moment's hesitation, he accepted. His daughter's face appeared, tear-streaked and desperate. Dad, I need to talk to you. I'm listening, Dominic replied, keeping his expression neutral. Everything's falling apart, she blurted. Mr. Bradford moved in today, and he's not who Mom said he was. He's controlling and mean when no one's watching. He called me a spoiled brat when I asked about my condo money. The money that was promised to you for betraying your father? Dominic asked calmly. Cassandra flinched. I didn't see it that way at first. Mom said you were financially abusive, that you controlled everything, that this was her only chance for independence. And now I don't know what to believe, she admitted. But Bradford threatened Preston tonight when Preston questioned why he was using your office. Actually grabbed him by the shirt. Dominic's expression hardened. Is Preston okay? He's locked in his room. Bradford took his phone. Cassandra wiped her eyes. Dad, I'm scared. Mom's not acting like herself. She's letting Bradford make all the decisions. Why are you telling me this, Cassandra? What do you want from me? She hesitated. I want out. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Dominic studied his daughter's face, looking for signs of deception. Your mother and Bradford are meeting with a psychiatrist tomorrow to build a case against me. Did you know about that? Cassandra nodded miserably. It was Bradford's idea. He said it was the fastest way to get control of everything. And you were okay with having your father forcibly committed to a psychiatric facility based on lies. No, I didn't think it would go that far. She looked away. I just wanted Mom to be happy. And I wanted the condo, the tuition money. Yes, she whispered. It was stupid and selfish. I see that now. Dominic sighed. If you truly want to make amends, I need something from you. Anything. Evidence. I need you to record Bradford admitting to his financial motivations. I need documentation of his plans regarding me. Can you do that? Cassandra nodded determinedly. Already started. After what happened with Preston, I installed a recording app on my phone. I have Bradford saying they need to neutralize you before you destroy everything. For the first time in days, Dominic felt a glimmer of hope for his daughter. Send everything to this email, he instructed, typing an address into the chat function. Then pack a bag, essentials only. Be ready to leave at a moment's notice. What are you going to do? End this, Dominic replied. Once and for all. Chapter 7. Spring the Trap. Dominic arrived at the courthouse at 8:30 a.m., immaculately dressed and flanked by Valerie Ortiz and Dr. Eleanor Chun, the forensic psychiatrist who had evaluated him that morning. Your mental status is entirely stable, Dr. Chun had concluded. You're understandably distressed by the betrayal you've experienced, but your thinking remains logical and your actions proportionate to the situation. Judge Leonard Wentworth, a stern man in his 60s, had agreed to hear Dominic's emergency petition regarding the financial fraud and potential psychiatric manipulation before Allison could implement her own strategy. At precisely 9 a.m., the bailiff called the case. As planned, neither Allison, Bradford, nor their attorney knew about this hearing. A legal maneuver Valerie had orchestrated through her connections with the court clerk. Your Honor, Valerie began. We're seeking emergency injunctive relief on behalf of Mr. Dominic Reeves, who has documented evidence of systematic financial fraud perpetrated by his wife, Allison Reeves, and her paramour, Theodore Bradford. Judge Wentworth reviewed the documentation carefully. These are serious allegations. Counselor, why the emergency filing without notice to opposing parties? Because as we speak, Mrs. Reeves and Mr. Bradford are meeting with a psychiatrist to fabricate claims of mental instability against my client, a transparent attempt to gain control of his assets and prevent him from defending himself against their fraud. Dominic presented evidence methodically. Bank statements showing unauthorized transfers, the fake Cayman account access logs with Bradford's digital fingerprints all over them, recordings Cassandra had provided of Bradford discussing their need to lock Dominic up before he could ruin everything. Dr. Chin testified to Dominic's mental stability and the disturbing pattern of gaslighting evident in the recorded conversations. By 10:30 a.m., Judge Wentworth had seen enough. I'm granting the emergency injunction, he declared. Mrs. Reeves and Mr. Bradford are hereby prohibited from accessing any accounts or property belonging to Mr. Reeves. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order preventing them from making any public or private claims regarding Mr. Reeves' mental health without evaluation by a court-appointed psychiatrist. As they exited the courtroom, Dominic received a text from Preston. They just left the doctor's office. Bradford's talking about going to the police this afternoon. Mom looks scared. Phase 2, Dominic told Valerie, who immediately made a call. 30 minutes later, as Allison and Bradford returned to the Reeves residence, they were met by 2 police officers and a court officer serving the emergency injunction and restraining order. From his position across the street, Dominic watched through binoculars as Bradford's face contorted with rage. Even from this distance, he could see the man gesturing wildly, shouting at the officers while Allison seemed to shrink beside him. His phone buzzed, Cassandra calling. Bradford's losing it, she reported, her voice a hushed whisper. He's screaming at Mom, saying she ruined everything by not acting faster. The police are still here. Where are you? Dominic asked. Upstairs bathroom. Preston's with me. Bradford shoved him when Preston tried to talk to the officers. He put his hands on Preston again. Dominic's voice went dangerously quiet. Yes, not hard, but definitely aggressive. Stay where you are. Lock the door. Dominic ended the call and dialed Officer Hartman directly. My son just reported that Theodore Bradford physically assaulted him in my residence, he said without preamble. My daughter witnessed it. They're currently hiding in an upstairs bathroom. Within minutes, additional police units arrived at the house. Dominic watched as Bradford was separated from Allison and questioned intensively. When one officer went upstairs, presumably to speak with Preston and Cassandra, Dominic knew it was time to make his move. He walked calmly across the street, approaching his home for the first time in almost 2 weeks. As he neared, Officer Hartman spotted him and moved to intercept. Mr. Reeves, this is an active police matter. I need you to. That's my son who was assaulted, Dominic said firmly. I'm going to see him now. Before Hartman could object, Preston burst from the front door. Dad! Dominic embraced his son, checking him over for injuries. Are you okay? I'm fine, Preston assured him. Bradford just pushed me. The cops are taking my statement. Cassandra appeared next, her expression a mixture of relief and shame as she approached her father. Dad, I'm so sorry. For everything. Dominic's expression remained neutral. We'll discuss your role in all this later. Right now, I need you both to pack essential belongings. You're not staying here tonight. Allison chose that moment to emerge from the house, her carefully applied makeup streaked with tears. Dominic, thank God you're here. Theo's been arrested. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. Save it, Allison. Dominic cut her off coldly. The children are coming with me. The court has granted me temporary custody pending investigation of the fraud allegations. What fraud allegations? What are you talking about? She looked genuinely confused, which confirmed Dominic's suspicion that Bradford had kept her in the dark about some of his more aggressive financial maneuvers. The $60,000 you and Bradford stole from our friends at your birthday party, Dominic began. The $200,000 you transferred to his shell company. The home equity line of credit you forged my signature on. The offshore account he tried to hack into. He smiled thinly. That last one was a trap, by the way. There was never any money there, just digital breadcrumbs for him to follow right into a felony charge. Allison's face crumpled. I never meant for any of this to happen. Theo said it was all legal, that we were just securing assets before telling you about us. By throwing a birthday party I wasn't invited to? By having our daughter bill me for it afterward? By reporting me as a missing person when I withdrew from your betrayal? Those were Theo's ideas, she protested weakly. He said we needed leverage, and you went along with all of it, Dominic noted. Every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal. Officer Hartman approached. Mr. Reeves, we've arrested Mr. Bradford for attempted financial fraud and assault. We found multiple devices in his possession containing evidence of attempts to access your accounts. Mrs. Reeves is not under arrest at this time, but she's a person of interest in our investigation. Understood, Dominic nodded. My children will be staying with me tonight. Is there any legal reason they cannot leave with me now? No, sir. The emergency custody order covers that. Dominic turned to Preston and Cassandra. Get your things. We're leaving in 10 minutes. As his children went upstairs to pack, Dominic faced Allison one last time. 19 years, he said quietly. 19 years I gave you everything I had. I built a company from nothing so you could have the life you wanted. I worked 80-hour weeks so you could have your tennis lessons and spa days and charity luncheons. Dominic, please. And in return, you plotted against me. You stole from me. You turned our daughter against me. You planned to have me committed to a psychiatric facility so you could take everything I built. Tears streamed down Allison's face. I made a terrible mistake. We can fix this. No, Dominic said simply. We can't. There's nothing left to fix. As Preston and Cassandra returned with their bags, Dominic put an arm around each of them and led them toward his waiting car, leaving Allison alone on the front steps of the house she would soon lose. The first phase of his reckoning was complete. Chapter 8, Scorched Earth. The following weeks unfolded exactly as Dominic had planned. Bradford remained in custody, unable to make the substantial bail set by Judge Wentworth after prosecutors added charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted extortion, and witness tampering based on his threatening messages to Cassandra. Allison, faced with impending financial ruin and potential criminal charges of her own, hired a desperate attorney who immediately sought a settlement conference. They're offering to drop all claims to your business and personal assets, Valerie reported during their strategy meeting. In exchange, they want the marital home, a one-time payment of $2 million, and for you to decline pressing criminal charges against Allison. Dominic leaned back in his chair. Counter with this. Allison gets nothing except her personal belongings and clothing. She signs a full confession detailing her role in the fraud scheme. In exchange, I'll write a letter to the prosecutor recommending leniency. She'll never agree to that, Valerie warned. She will when she realizes the alternative is prison, Dominic replied calmly. Bradford is going down regardless. His pattern of targeting wealthy women is too established to ignore now that we've connected the dots. Allison's only hope is to position herself as another victim. Meanwhile, Dominic had moved Preston and Cassandra into a luxury apartment downtown while maintaining ownership of the family home. Preston had adjusted well, relieved to be away from the toxic environment. Cassandra's situation was more complex. I don't deserve your forgiveness, she told Dominic one evening as they sat on the apartment balcony overlooking the city. I betrayed you for money and status. Yes, you did, Dominic agreed, his tone matter-of-fact rather than accusatory. The question is what you've learned from it. Cassandra stared at her hands. That loyalty matters more than material things. That people who offer quick riches in exchange for betrayal can't be trusted. That I threw away something precious for something worthless. Good lessons, Dominic nodded. Expensive ones, too. What happens now? With me, I mean. Dominic studied his daughter's face, searching for sincerity. That depends on you. I've arranged for the remainder of your tuition to be paid through a trust. You'll receive a modest monthly allowance for living expenses. The rest, including rebuilding our relationship, will take time and consistent effort on your part. And Mom? What's going to happen to her? Your mother made choices, Dominic said evenly. Now she'll face consequences. 2 days later, Allison's attorney called Valerie with their response to Dominic's counteroffer. Allison would accept his terms with one modification. She wanted ongoing access to Preston. Her parental rights are not negotiable, her attorney insisted. Dominic considered this. Preston, despite everything, still loved his mother. Complete severance would only hurt him. Limited supervised visitation, Dominic conceded, once weekly, in a public location for 6 months. After that, we reassess based on Preston's wishes. The deal was struck. Allison signed a comprehensive confession detailing how Bradford had systematically manipulated her into betraying Dominic, though she acknowledged her own willing participation once the affair began. She admitted to the birthday party scheme, the financial fraud, and the planned psychiatric commitment. In exchange, Dominic wrote a carefully worded letter to the prosecutor, suggesting that while Allison should face appropriate legal consequences, her cooperation in building the case against Bradford should be considered a mitigating factor. The prosecutor ultimately charged Allison with misdemeanor fraud and placed her on probation for 3 years. She was ordered to make restitution to the birthday party guests she had overcharged, plus perform 500 hours of community service. Bradford, facing more serious charges and with no one willing to support his defense, accepted a plea deal, 5 years in prison for financial fraud, plus restitution to his previous victims. As for Fletcher Mills, the reputation management consultant, who had planned to smear Dominic in the media, he found himself abruptly blacklisted after Marlene Kovacs leaked evidence of his less ethical tactics to several industry watchdogs. By month's end, Dominic had reclaimed control of every aspect of his life. His business was thriving, with several new major contracts signed after clients heard about his strategic handling of personal adversity. His relationship with Preston was stronger than ever, and even Cassandra was showing genuine remorse and effort toward redemption. Only one loose end remained. Chapter 9. Ashes and Rebirth. 6 months after the fateful birthday party no one attended, Dominic stood in the master bedroom of the family home, surveying the space that had once represented his American dream. The movers had taken the last of the furniture that morning. Tomorrow, new owners would take possession, a young couple starting their own journey, blissfully unaware of the betrayal these walls had witnessed. His phone buzzed with a text from Solomon. Paperwork complete. Transfer executed. She'll receive notification by end of day. Dominic smiled grimly. The final piece of his plan was in motion. That afternoon, as he signed the closing documents at his attorney's office, Allison was receiving formal notice that the generous divorce settlement she thought she negotiated, a small apartment and modest monthly payments, had been contingent on strict behavioral requirements outlined in the fine print. Her recent actions, specifically attempting to contact Dominic's clients with disparaging claims and establishing a GoFundMe page portraying herself as a victim of financial abuse, had triggered the nullification clause. Effective immediately, all support payments ceased, and she had 30 days to vacate the apartment. Isn't that somewhat excessive? Valerie asked cautiously as Dominic explained the situation. Not at all, Dominic replied calmly. I gave her a clear path to a dignified new beginning. She chose instead to continue attacking me. Actions have consequences. Later that evening, as Dominic hosted a small dinner at his new home for Preston, Cassandra, and a few loyal friends who had stood by him throughout the ordeal, his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Mr. Reeves? A tentative female voice asked when he answered. This is Patricia Wilson. We've never met, but you exposed Theodore Bradford's scheme. I was one of his previous victims. I'm aware of your situation, Ms. Wilson, Dominic acknowledged. I'm sorry for what you experienced. No, I'm calling to thank you, she corrected. The restitution Bradford was ordered to pay, it saved my life. I was about to lose my home after what he took from me. Similar calls came the following days from Bradford's other victims. Dominic listened to each one, offering practical advice on rebuilding after financial devastation, something he understood intimately from his own childhood experiences. 1 month later, Dominic launched the Phoenix Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting victims of relationship-based financial fraud. Using his business acumen and network, he created a system offering legal aid, financial counseling, and temporary support for those rebuilding their lives after betrayal. Preston eagerly joined the Foundation's youth outreach program, helping young people from broken homes navigate their new realities. Even Cassandra, having transferred to a local university to be closer to family, volunteered her weekends to the cause. As for Allison, her final attempt at reconciliation came on a rainy Tuesday, exactly 1 year after Dominic's unattended birthday party. She appeared at his office unannounced, thinner and without the designer clothes and perfect makeup that had once been her armor. "Just 5 minutes," she pleaded with his assistant. "I just need 5 minutes." Against his better judgment, Dominic agreed to see her. "You've done well," she observed, looking around his expansive new office. "The Foundation, the business expansion. Everyone speaks highly of you." "What do you want, Allison?" Dominic asked directly. "Forgiveness," she answered simply, "or at least understanding. I've lost everything. My home, my reputation, my children's respect. I'm working as a receptionist at a dentist's office. I live in a studio apartment." "You made choices," Dominic reminded her, unmoved. "These are the consequences." "I know," she acknowledged, "but we were married for 19 years. We raised children together. Doesn't that count for anything?" Dominic studied the woman he had once loved beyond reason. It counted for everything. "That's why your betrayal was unforgivable. People make mistakes, Dominic. Terrible ones. But they can change, they can learn. Some betrayals are too fundamental," he interrupted. "Some broken things can't be repaired." Tears welled in Allison's eyes. "So that's it? 2 decades together, and we end as strangers." "We end as what you made us," Dominic corrected. A cautionary tale. After she left, Dominic stared out the window at the city skyline, feeling neither victory nor vindication, only a quiet certainty that he had protected what mattered: his dignity, his future, and his children's understanding of consequences. That evening, as he prepared dinner with Preston and Cassandra in their new home, watching his children laugh together for the first time in months, Dominic realized that while some fires destroy everything they touch, others, the right kind, purify and make way for new growth. The betrayal had cost him his marriage, his illusions, and his blind trust in others. But in their place, he had built something stronger, a life defined by his own terms, relationships based on earned trust rather than obligation, and a legacy that transformed personal pain into purpose. As Preston proposed a toast to new beginnings, Dominic raised his glass in agreement. Some endings, he had learned, are just better beginnings in disguise. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Weight of Years. Thomas Kirkpatrick learned patience in the steel mills of Pittsburgh. At 42, he carried the quiet strength of a man who'd built everything from nothing: a successful construction firm, a lakeside home, a marriage that looked perfect in photographs. The photos lied. He'd met Vanessa Gutierrez at a charity gala 9 years ago. She was 26, magnetic, with ambitions that sparkled like her dress. Thomas, fresh off his father Walter's first cancer scare, had been drawn to her energy. She made him feel alive again after months of hospital waiting rooms. Walter Kirkpatrick had survived that round, a retired Marine who'd raised Thomas alone after his mother's death. Walter was the granite foundation of Thomas's life. He'd taught his son to build things that lasted: buildings, businesses, character. Measure twice, cut once, Walter would say, whether talking about lumber or life decisions. Thomas should have measure Vanessa twice. The sign started small. Vanessa's networking events that ran until 2 a.m. Credit card statements for hotels Thomas never visited. Her phone, always face down, password changed monthly. But Thomas had been busy. Contracts to close, crews to manage, and increasingly, a father to care for as the cancer returned, aggressive and unforgiving. "You're always with him," Vanessa complained one evening, her voice sharp over the rim of her wine glass. They were in their granite kitchen, all modern lines and cold surfaces. "Your father has nurses." "He has cancer," Thomas replied, voice level. "He has months, maybe, and I have a husband who's never here." She turned away, scrolling her phone. "Carmen and Dana's husbands take them places." Thomas had bitten back his response. Carmen Dennis and Dana Figueroa, Vanessa's friends, two women whose greatest accomplishments seemed to be spending their husbands' money and posting about it. Instead, he'd driven to the hospital, where Walter lay reading a Steinbeck novel, refusing to act like a dying man. "She giving you grief, son?" Walter had asked, those sharp eyes missing nothing despite the morphine drip. "Nothing I can't handle." Handling and fixing are different things. Walter had set down his book. "Your mother, God rest her, she was a partner. Built this life alongside me. That girl you married." He trailed off, but Thomas heard what went unsaid. That was 3 weeks ago. Now Walter was in hospice, and Thomas spent every evening there, holding his father's hand, sharing silence that meant everything. Vanessa came once, stayed 20 minutes, spent 15 of them on her phone. Thomas's best friend Cameron Lord pulled him aside at the hospital one night. Cameron ran a private security firm, and his sharp instincts had saved Thomas from bad business deals before. "Brother, I'm going to say something, and you're going to want to hit me," Cameron began, his voice low. They stood in the fluorescent-lit hallway, coffee from the vending machine cooling in their hands. "Vanessa's been seen around town. With someone." Thomas's jaw tightened. "Who?" "Ricardo Durham. That real estate developer. The one who tried to lowball you on the Morrison project." Ricardo Durham. Slick suits, slicker smile, the kind of man who saw other people's possessions as opportunities. Thomas had beaten him to 3 major contracts in the past year. Apparently, Ricardo had found another way to strike back. "How long?" Thomas asked. 6 months. Maybe more. Cameron's hand gripped Thomas's shoulder. "I'm sorry, man. I just thought, with everything with Walter, you should know." Thomas nodded slowly. "Thank you. But right now, my father needs me. The rest." He'd looked through the window at Walter, sleeping peacefully for once. "The rest can wait." But he'd filed it away, that information. Measure twice, cut once. Chapter 2. The Vigil. Walter Kirkpatrick died on a Tuesday morning in October, with Thomas holding his hand and autumn sunlight streaming through the hospice window. His last words were simple. "Proud of you, son. Always have been." Thomas sat there for an hour after, memorizing his father's face, the weight of that calloused hand in his. Walter had survived a war, cancer's first assault, a wife's death, and raising a son alone. He'd built a life of integrity, brick by brick. Thomas had tried to do the same. The funeral arrangements consumed the next 48 hours. Thomas moved through them with the systematic precision his father had taught him. Casket selection, program printing, contacting Walter's Marine Corps buddies. He was grateful for the tasks. They held grief at bay with their demands. Vanessa performed her role adequately. She made sympathetic faces at the funeral home, stood beside Thomas during casket selection, posted a tasteful black and white photo on social media, saying goodbye to my father-in-law. Heaven gained an angel. Folded hands, broken heart. She met Walter 5 times in 9 years. The viewing was Thursday evening. Thomas stood beside the casket in his dress blues. Walter had been so proud when Thomas earned his Marine Reserves commission. The room filled with people who'd loved Walter, Marines who'd served with him, neighbors he'd helped, men from Thomas's crew who'd heard Walter's stories at company barbecues. Franklin Palmer, Thomas's project manager and friend for 15 years, embraced him hard. Walter was good people, boss. Best of them. He was, Thomas agreed, voice steady despite the weight in his chest. Vanessa stood beside him, checking her phone periodically. When people approached, she transformed, perfect grieving daughter-in-law, touching Thomas's arm, dabbing her eyes with tissues. The moment they turned away, the mask dropped. She was somewhere else entirely. Around 7 p.m., Ricardo Durham appeared. He had the audacity to approach Thomas, hand extended. "Sorry for your loss," Ricardo said. eyes cold despite the sympathetic words. Walter was quite a man. Thomas shook his hand, gripped firm enough to make Ricardo wince slightly. Funny, I don't remember inviting you. Vanessa mentioned it. Thought I should pay respects. Ricardo's smile was a blade. We've been coordinating on some community projects. I'm sure you have. Thomas held his gaze until Ricardo looked away first. The exit's behind you. After Ricardo left, Thomas noticed Cameron watching from across the room. His friend's face was granite. Thomas gave a slight nod. Not yet, but soon. That night, in their bedroom, Vanessa dropped the act completely. She sat at her vanity, removing makeup with aggressive swipes. Ricardo was just being respectful, she said, reading Thomas's silence. Unlike you, he understands community engagement. Thomas said nothing. He was folding his uniform, each movement precise. And honestly, this whole week, it's been exhausting. Your father was old, Thomas. This wasn't unexpected. At some point, we need to move forward. Thomas hung the uniform in the closet, turned, looked at his wife, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time in months. Saw a stranger wearing Vanessa's face. The funeral's tomorrow, he said quietly. Then we'll move forward. She didn't hear the promise in those words. Chapter 3. The Breaking. Friday dawned cold and clear. Thomas, dressed in his blues again, positioned Walter's decorations perfectly. Purple Heart, Bronze Star, Good Conduct Medal. 53 years of being a man worth remembering. The funeral mass was at St. Michael's, where Walter had attended weekly since Thomas's mother's death. Father Morrison, who'd known Walter for 30 years, delivered a eulogy that balanced solemnity with humor. Stories of Walter's stubbornness, his generosity, his unshakable faith in simple goodness. Thomas sat in the front pew, Vanessa beside him. She wore appropriate black, appropriate expression, appropriate everything. A performance for the crowd of 300 who'd come to say goodbye. The cemetery was worse. Watching Walter's flag-draped casket lowered into earth beside Thomas's mother felt like something vital being torn away. The Marine Honor Guard performed their ritual, the rifle salute cracking across the cemetery, taps played by a young corporal whose hand shook slightly. Cameron Lord and Franklin Palmer stood with the other pallbearers, solid presences. Dana Figueroa and Carmen Dennis flanked Vanessa, playing their roles as supportive friends. The ceremony concluded. People began the slow dispersion toward cars, toward the reception at the VFW hall. Thomas remained, watching the groundskeepers prepare to fill the grave. Walter hated leaving jobs unfinished. Vanessa's voice cut through his grief like a blade through silk. Can this be over? I have a nail appointment at 3. Thomas heard several people nearby freeze. Franklin's head snapped around. Cameron took a step closer, protective. Thomas looked at his wife. The mask had slipped completely. She was checking her phone, annoyed at the inconvenience of burying the man who'd raised her husband, who'd welcomed her into the family despite his private doubts, who'd died while she was probably in Ricardo Durham's bed. Thomas didn't say a word. He looked at Vanessa, through her, really, then turned back to his father's grave. Thomas, come on, Vanessa pressed. People are leaving. He walked past her toward his truck, drove alone to the VFW hall, where he shook hands, accepted condolences, thanked people for coming. Vanessa arrived 30 minutes later, playing catch-up with her role. That night, Thomas sat in his home office while Vanessa slept. He'd built this room himself, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, walnut desk, the smell of leather and old paper. Walter's favorite space in the house. Thomas opened his laptop, drafted a document, made phone calls to his lawyer, Jeremy Garrison, who'd handled his business contracts for years. I need divorce papers drawn up, Thomas said, and I need them ready by Saturday afternoon. Jesus, Thomas, I'm sorry about Walter, but are you sure? This is fast. I'm sure. Standard 50-50 split, no contest. Make it clean. She'll probably fight for more. You've built significant wealth. She won't fight, Thomas said. Trust me. Saturday passed in a fog. Thomas went to the office, reviewed contracts, anything to avoid the house. Vanessa went shopping with Dana and Carmen, retail therapy, she called it. Sunday morning, Thomas received the manila envelope by courier. Divorce papers, crisp and official. He placed them on Vanessa's pillow while she showered. He was downstairs making coffee when the screaming started. Vanessa thundered down in her robe, papers clutched in her fist, face twisted with fury. "What the fuck is this?" she shrieked, throwing the papers at him. They scattered across the granite countertop. Over a comment? Over one goddamn comment. Thomas poured his coffee, took a sip, met her eyes with the calm he'd learned in the Marines, reinforced through years of managing crews who looked to him for steady leadership. "No," he said quietly. "Over years of you." The comment just made it easy. "Years of me? I've been a good wife. I've supported your boring business, attended your boring events, played happy family with your dying father." "Stop." The single word carried command weight. Vanessa actually stepped back. "You've been seen with Ricardo Durham for 6 months. I know about the hotels, the late nights, all of it. This marriage ended the moment you made that choice. I just didn't know it until you showed me who you really are." Her face cycled through emotions: shock, calculation, defiance. She chose attack. "So what? You're a boring middle-aged man who talks about construction and spends all his time with crews and dying old men. Ricardo is successful, sophisticated. Ricardo is broke," Thomas interrupted. "His last 3 projects failed. He's leveraged to his eyeballs. But you didn't know that because you never bothered to look past the surface." Vanessa's mouth opened. "Closed. You're just trying to hurt me. I'm telling you the truth. Something I should have done years ago." Thomas set down his coffee. "You're selfish, Vanessa. You always have been. I convinced myself it was ambition drive, but it's just selfishness. And I'm done pretending it's something else. You can't just throw me out. I'm not. You can stay until you find a place. I'll be at Cameron's. Sign the papers. Take your half. Move on." He picked up his keys. "We're done. Finally, honestly, completely done." "This isn't over," she shrieked as he walked toward the garage. "You'll regret this. I'll take you for everything." Thomas paused at the door, looked back. "You already took the only thing that mattered. My time, the months I should have spent with my father instead of trying to save a marriage to someone who was already gone." He left her standing in their expensive kitchen, surrounded by the life he'd built, screaming threats at his back. At Cameron's house, his friend handed him a beer and asked no questions. They sat on the deck, watching autumn leaves fall. "You good?" Cameron finally asked. Getting there, Thomas said. And surprisingly, it was true. The weight that had pressed on him for months, the pretending, the hoping, the trying, was gone. In its place was something cleaner. Clarity. But Cameron knew Thomas too well. "What are you thinking about?" Thomas took a long pull of his beer. Thought about Ricardo Durham's smirk at the funeral. About Vanessa's cruelty at his father's graveside. About years of small cuts and dismissals and contempt wrapped in a pretty package. "Measure twice," Thomas said softly. "Cut once," Cameron finished. Understanding dawned in his eyes. "Brother, whatever you're planning." "I'm not planning anything," Thomas lied. "I'm just moving forward." But in his mind, pieces were already shifting into place. The game had changed. Vanessa wanted to play victim, to paint him as the cruel husband abandoning her. Ricardo thought he'd won something. They had no idea who Thomas Kirkpatrick really was. The man Walter had raised didn't just build things. He understood foundations, stress points, exactly how much pressure something could take before it collapsed. And he was very, very good at demolition. Chapter 4. The Truth Beneath. Monday morning brought rain and Jeremy Garrison's phone call. "She's hired Guillermo Underwood," Jeremy said without preamble. Guillermo was the most aggressive divorce attorney in Pittsburgh, famous for destroying men's finances in court. And Thomas, she's not signing the standard agreement. She's going for alimony, claiming she sacrificed her career for your marriage, emotional distress, the whole playbook. Thomas stood in Cameron's guest room, watching rain streak the windows. Expected. There's more. She filed a restraining order petition. Claims you were verbally abusive, threatening. Judge Carol Nolan granted a temporary order pending a hearing. Based on what? Her testimony says you threatened her when serving papers, that she fears for her safety. Jeremy's frustration bled through. It's standard procedure for her type of play. Makes you look like the aggressor, sets up the narrative that she's the victim. Thomas felt his jaw tighten, but kept his voice level. So I can't go to my own house. Not for 72 hours minimum. And Thomas, she's already talking to reporters. Local news is running a story tonight. Local businessman divorces wife days after father's funeral. She's spinning this as you having a breakdown, being cruel. Thomas hung up and found Cameron in the kitchen. Vanessa's going nuclear. Figures. Woman like that doesn't know how to lose gracefully. Cameron poured coffee. What do you need? Information. Everything you can find on her. Ricardo, too. If they're coming at me this hard, this fast, they're hiding something. Cameron's smile was predatory. Now you're thinking clearly. I'll make some calls. That evening, Thomas watched himself on the local news. The reporter stood outside his home, interviewing Vanessa, who looked appropriately devastated in yoga pants and an oversized sweater. He just changed, Vanessa said, dabbing her eyes. After his father passed, it was like he blamed me for something. Then these papers out of nowhere. I'm terrified of what he might do. Thomas's phone exploded with messages. Clients asking questions. Crew members expressing concern. Even some of Walter's old friends, confused and worried. Franklin Palmer called. Boss, I don't believe a word of it. Half the crew doesn't either. We know you. We saw her at the funeral. I appreciate that, Franklin. But this is going to get messy before it gets better. Whatever you need. We're here. By Wednesday, Cameron had results. He arrived at his own house after midnight, carrying a thick folder and wearing the expression Thomas recognized from their Marine days. The look that meant he'd found something ugly. You're not going to like this, Cameron said, spreading papers across the dining table. But you need to see it. The first document was a credit report. Vanessa had opened 3 credit cards in Thomas's name over the past year, maxing them out to nearly $75,000. Cash advances, luxury purchases, payments to hotels. She's been siphoning money, Cameron explained. But that's not the worst part. The second document was a lease agreement. Vanessa had rented a downtown loft 6 months ago, in both her and Ricardo Durham's names. They've been playing house, Cameron continued. I've got photos, timestamps, everything. She's been living a double life. Thomas studied the photos. Vanessa and Ricardo leaving the loft together, having dinner at expensive restaurants. Ricardo's hand on her back, possessive. The third document made Thomas's blood run cold. A life insurance policy on Walter Kirkpatrick, taken out 4 months ago. Beneficiary, Vanessa Kirkpatrick. She insured your dying father, Cameron said quietly, for $2 million. And she's the sole beneficiary. How is that legal? It shouldn't be. You need an insurable interest, family, financial dependency. She must have forged something, lied on the application. Cameron's voice hardened. Thomas, I think she's been planning this. The affair, the insurance, the credit cards. She was setting you up for a big payday. Thomas stood, paced to the window. Rain still fell, turning the city into smeared lights. Walter's policy pays out to me. $200,000. Enough to cover funeral costs and settle his few debts. Right. But if she could claim your marriage was solid, that she was family, she could contest it. Or better yet, stay married long enough to be entitled to half. Except I filed for divorce first, Thomas finished. Before she could execute whatever plan she had. And now she's panicking. That's why she's going scorched earth. The restraining order, the media, Guillermo Underwood. It's all desperation. Cameron placed another document on the table. And there's one more thing. Ricardo Durham is in serious financial trouble. I'm talking about weeks away from bankruptcy. Multiple liens, lawsuits from contractors, creditors circling. So he needs money, Thomas said slowly. And Vanessa found a way to get it. Through me. Through Walter. Through Walter's death, Cameron corrected. Thomas, if that insurance policy is legitimate, she gets $2 million in a few weeks. If it's not legitimate, she's committed fraud. Either way, she bet on my father dying to fund her new life with Ricardo. The fury that rose in Thomas was cold, controlled. Not the hot anger of betrayal, but something harder, more purposeful. That's why she wanted the funeral over. She was literally waiting for him to die, so she could cash in. Cameron's hand gripped his shoulder. What do you want to do? Thomas looked at the documents spread across the table. Evidence of theft, fraud, conspiracy. Enough to destroy Vanessa's narrative, certainly. Enough to send her to prison, possibly. But prison was too easy, too clean. Tell me about Ricardo's debts, Thomas said. Who does he owe money to? Everyone. But the biggest creditor is Lester Bowman Construction. Ricardo owes them $400,000 for the Liberty Avenue project that failed. Lester's filed suit, but Ricardo's been dodging. Thomas knew Lester Bowman. Old-school contractor, tough as nails, didn't suffer fools or thieves. They'd worked together on several projects over the years. And the other creditors? Cameron rattled off names. Suppliers, subcontractors, banks. Men Thomas knew from 20 years in the business. Men who valued reputation, who'd listened to someone they respected. An idea formed. Not revenge, exactly. Justice. I need you to verify something, Thomas said. Check if Ricardo's name is on any property titles, vehicles, anything valuable. I already did. He's transferred everything to shell companies or his brother's name. Classic asset protection move before bankruptcy. What about the loft he shares with Vanessa? Leases in both their names, but Cameron pulled up a document on his laptop. Interesting. The deposit and first 3 months were paid by a company called Durham Development Holdings. That's Ricardo's failed company. So technically, he used business funds, money he owes creditors, to set up a love nest. That's fraud, Thomas said. That's just the beginning. If we dig deeper, then dig. I want every illegal, immoral, or questionable thing Ricardo Durham has done in the past 5 years. Every shortcut, every bribe, every code violation. Everything. Cameron's smile was wolfish. And Vanessa? Thomas looked at the insurance policy, at his father's name reduced to a dollar amount. Vanessa made a mistake. She thought I was too grief-stricken to notice. Too weak to fight back. She's about to learn why Walter Kirkpatrick's son doesn't lose. Chapter 5. Building the Case. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for Friday before Judge Carol Nolan. Jeremy Garrison prepared Thomas thoroughly. Don't react, don't engage, let the evidence speak. Vanessa arrived with Guillermo Underwood, playing her part perfectly. Hair pulled back, minimal makeup, clothes conservative. The victimized wife, afraid and wronged. Judge Nolan, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, reviewed the petition. Mrs. Kirkpatrick, you claim your husband was verbally abusive and threatening when serving divorce papers. Yes, Your Honor, Vanessa said, voice trembling. He was cold, angry. He said things that made me fear for my safety. What specifically did he say? Vanessa hesitated. That I'd taken everything that mattered. That I was already gone. The way he looked at me, I thought he might become violent. Thomas sat still, betraying nothing. This was her play. Vague implications, emotional appeals. Jeremy stood. Your Honor, Mr. Kirkpatrick never threatened violence. He simply stated the marriage was over. We have witnesses who saw Mrs. Kirkpatrick's behavior at Mr. Kirkpatrick's father's funeral, behavior that prompted this divorce. Objection, Guillermo interrupted. Mrs. Kirkpatrick's conduct at a funeral is irrelevant to whether she should fear her husband. I'll allow it, Judge Nolan said. Continue, Mr. Garrison. Jeremy presented statements from Franklin Palmer, Cameron Lord, and 3 other funeral attendees, all describing Vanessa's nail appointment comment, her phone usage during the service, her apparent disinterest. This establishes a pattern, Jeremy argued. Mrs. Kirkpatrick has shown consistent disregard for her husband's grief and family. When confronted with divorce papers, she became aggressive and threatening, not the other way around. Judge Nolan reviewed the statements. Mrs. Kirkpatrick, did you make a comment about a nail appointment at your father-in-law's funeral? Vanessa's face flushed. It was taken out of context. I was exhausted from days of funeral planning. Yes or no, Mrs. Kirkpatrick? Yes, but did your husband ever threaten violence? Silence. Not directly, but did he ever physically harm you? No. Did he raise his voice or use threatening language? He was cold, emotionless. That's threatening in its own way. That's not what threatening means under the law. Judge Nolan set down the papers. I'm denying the restraining order. Mr. Kirkpatrick may return to his home. Mrs. Kirkpatrick, you have 72 hours to remove your belongings. This court will not be used to wage strategic warfare in divorce proceedings. Vanessa's mask cracked. Your Honor, I have nowhere to go. That's not this court's concern. Dismissed. Outside the courtroom, Guillermo Underwood grabbed Thomas's arm. This isn't over. We'll bury you in discovery, tie you up for years. Thomas removed the attorney's hand carefully. Your client committed fraud. Multiple counts. When that comes out, you'll be lucky if your bar license survives the fallout. Consider carefully what battles you want to fight. Guillermo's confidence flickered. Thomas walked away, leaving the attorney processing the threat. That afternoon, Thomas returned home. The house felt violated. Drawers left open, closets emptied, Vanessa's presence erased, but her chaos remaining. He found the credit card statements she'd hidden in her office, along with documents about the insurance policy on Walter. Cameron arrived an hour later with more information. Ricardo's getting desperate. He's meeting with loan sharks, trying to raise cash. And Vanessa's been to the insurance company twice this week, asking about payout timelines. They suspect fraud? They're investigating. The policy was rushed, the beneficiary designation unusual. If it was properly filed, Walter had to have signed something. But Walter didn't sign anything. He was barely conscious his last weeks. Thomas felt pieces clicking into place. She forged his signature. That's my guess. But proving it requires the insurance company to push, and they're moving slow. Then we speed them up. Thomas pulled out his phone, dialed a number he'd found in Walter's effects. Mrs. Sherry O'Neill? This is Thomas Kirkpatrick, Walter's son. I understand you were his hospice nurse. Yes, I'm sorry for not calling sooner. I have a question about visitors during his last month. The conversation lasted 20 minutes. When Thomas hung up, his expression was granite. Walter had no visitors except me in his last 2 weeks, Thomas said. Vanessa came once, 3 weeks before he died. She asked Sherry to leave the room, said she wanted privacy to say goodbye. She was alone with him for 15 minutes. Long enough to get a signature, Cameron said, or forge one while he slept. Sherry said Walter was heavily medicated that day. Probably didn't even know Vanessa was there. Thomas stared at the insurance documents. She used my dying father's hand to sign away $2 million. That's not just fraud. That's elder abuse. That's criminal. Thomas made another call, this time to the insurance company. He explained everything, the timeline, the circumstances, the evidence. The claims investigator listened intently. Mr. Kirkpatrick, we've already flagged this policy for review. What you're describing aligns with our concerns. We'll need the hospice nurse's statement, and will probably involve law enforcement. Whatever you need, Thomas said. Just don't let her collect a dime. The next move was riskier. Thomas called Lester Bowman. Lester, it's Thomas Kirkpatrick. I need to talk to you about Ricardo Durham. They met at a diner on the north side. Lester was 65, with hands scarred from 40 years of construction work and eyes that had seen every scam the industry offered. Ricardo Durham owes you $400,000, Thomas said over coffee. And he's not paying. Tell me something I don't know. My lawyer says he's judgment-proof, hidden everything. Not everything. Thomas slid across photographs of a downtown loft. He's living in a luxury apartment, paying $6,000 a month. The deposit came from Durham Development Holdings, the same company that owes you money. Lester's jaw tightened. That son of a bitch used my money to play house. With my wife, Thomas added. Who's trying to take me for everything in a divorce while living in an apartment my business rival is funding with money stolen from people like you? What do you want, Thomas? I want him exposed. I want every contractor, supplier, and creditor in Pittsburgh to know what he is. I want his life to be so toxic that he can't get a loan, can't get a contract, can't show his face without someone demanding payment. Lester smiled slowly. I can help with that. The Builders Association meets next week. Ricardo was supposed to speak about his new development, the one he's promising will pay everyone back. He doesn't have a new development. Exactly. But if people knew that before he spoke. Thomas leaned forward. Tell me what you need. Chapter 6. The Trap Springs. The Builders Association meeting was Thursday night at the Omni William Penn Hotel. Ricardo Durham was the keynote speaker, promising a revolutionary new development that would change Pittsburgh's skyline and restore faith in Durham development. Thomas arrived early with Cameron and Franklin Palmer. They took seats in the back, waiting. Ricardo's presentation was polished. Renderings of a sleek residential tower, promises of jobs and profits, reassurances to his creditors. He wore his best suit, his confidence restored by the prospect of fooling everyone one more time. During the Q&A session, Lester Bowman stood. "Ricardo, you owe me $400,000 from the Liberty Avenue project. When am I getting paid?" Ricardo's smile didn't waver. "As I said, Mr. Bowman, this new development will generate the capital to satisfy all outstanding obligations." "Ow!" Lester interrupted. "You don't have permits. You don't have financing. You don't even own the land you're claiming to develop." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ricardo's face reddened. "Those are baseless accusations." "Are they?" Another voice, Willie Shoemaker, a plumbing contractor. "Because you owe me $60,000, and when I checked property records today, the site you're showing doesn't have a single permit application filed." More voices joined. Suppliers, contractors, all standing with similar stories. Thomas watched Ricardo's carefully constructed facade crumble. There's been a misunderstanding," Ricardo stammered. "The permits are in process. The financing is nearly secured." "You've been saying that for 6 months," Lester said, "while living in a luxury apartment paid for with our money." Thomas stood. The room quieted. Ricardo's eyes found him, widened with recognition and fear. "I'm Thomas Kirkpatrick," Thomas said, voice carrying. "Some of you know me. You know I don't speak unless I have facts. So here are facts. Ricardo Durham has been operating a shell game, moving assets between companies to avoid creditors. He's been using business funds for personal expenses, including maintaining a relationship with my wife while my father was dying. The loft he's living in, paid for by Durham Development Holdings, the same company that owes many of you money." Thomas displayed documents on his phone, projecting them onto the screen behind Ricardo. "Here are the lease agreements, the payment records, the property transfers. Everything he's hidden, documented, and verified." Ricardo tried to speak, but the room erupted. Association President Alan Hoffman called for order, demanded Ricardo respond. This is a personal attack," Ricardo managed. "Thomas is angry about his divorce, trying to destroy my reputation." "I don't need to destroy your reputation," Thomas said coldly. "You've done that yourself. I'm just making sure everyone sees it." Cameron stood next, distributing packets to the association members. "Inside, you'll find everything you need to file criminal complaints against Ricardo Durham for fraud. My firm has compiled evidence of his fraudulent transfers, forged documents, and theft of business assets. The district attorney's office is already reviewing the case." The meeting dissolved into chaos. Creditors surrounded Ricardo, demanding answers. Alan Hoffman declared the association would be investigating immediately and barring Ricardo from membership. Thomas walked out as Ricardo's empire imploded behind him. In the parking lot, Franklin shook his hand. "That was beautiful, boss. Clean and devastating." "That was business," Thomas corrected. "Now comes the personal part." He called Jeremy Garrison. "File the motion. I want the divorce proceedings to include a full financial audit. Everything Vanessa's done, every dollar she's stolen. And I want criminal complaints filed for the credit card fraud and the insurance scheme." "Thomas, that's aggressive." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. She tried to profit from my father's death. She tried to steal from me, then paint me as the villain. No more mercy. We end this." That night, the story hit the news. Not about Thomas's divorce, but about Ricardo Durham's exposure. Local developer accused of massive fraud ran on every channel. Vanessa called at midnight. Thomas answered on speaker, Cameron listening. "What did you do?" she screamed. "Ricardo's being investigated. His accounts are frozen. You destroyed him." "I exposed him," Thomas corrected. "There's a difference. Ricardo destroyed himself when he decided to steal from people who trusted him. This is about you being vindictive. You can't handle that I found someone better. Better. Thomas laughed, actually laughed. Vanessa, he's broke. He's been using you to try to get to my money. That's why he started the affair, to get close to someone financially stable. And you were so eager to believe you'd found something real that you helped him try to defraud my dying father. Silence on the line. That's right, Thomas continued. We know about the insurance policy. We know you forged Walter's signature. The insurance company knows. The authorities know. You're not getting $2 million. You're getting criminal charges. You can't prove. I can prove all of it. The hospice nurse remembers your visit. The handwriting analysts have compared the signature. The investigators have the timeline. It's over, Vanessa. I'll still take half your assets in the divorce. You'll take half of nothing once the criminal penalties are applied. And that's if you're not in prison. Thomas's voice went cold. You made one critical mistake. You thought I was too weak, too distracted by grief to notice what you were doing. You thought you were smarter than me. I am smarter than. No, Thomas interrupted. You're just cruel. And cruelty is easy. Building something real, something lasting, that's hard. That takes character. Walter taught me that. And he taught me something else. When you find termites, you don't negotiate. You eliminate them. He hung up. Cameron whistled low. Termites. Harsh. Accurate, Thomas said. He felt no satisfaction, no joy in Vanessa's panic. Just the cold certainty that he'd done what needed to be done. The pieces were in motion now. Ricardo's fraud investigation would lead to Vanessa. The insurance company's complaint would add to her legal troubles. The credit card fraud would finish the picture. But Thomas wasn't done. Not yet. There was one more person who needed to understand what happened when you betrayed Thomas Kirkpatrick. Chapter 7. Pressure Points. By Monday morning, Ricardo Durham's world was ashes. His bank accounts were frozen, pending investigation. His business licenses were suspended. Every creditor had filed suit, and the district attorney had opened a criminal inquiry into his fraudulent asset transfers. Thomas received updates from Cameron with grim satisfaction. Justice moved slowly, but when it moved, it was thorough. The divorce proceedings accelerated. Jeremy Garrison filed motions for emergency financial disclosure, citing the credit card fraud. Judge Nolan, already unimpressed with Vanessa's tactics, granted them. Guillermo Underwood tried to fight, but was hampered by his client's growing legal problems. When the insurance fraud investigation became public, he quietly withdrew from representing Vanessa. She hired a new lawyer, Stuart Horn, who was cheaper and less scrupulous. Stuart's strategy was to claim Vanessa was a victim too, manipulated by Ricardo, unaware of the insurance policy details, just a confused woman in a bad marriage. Thomas wasn't buying it. Neither was Jeremy. She signed the insurance application, Jeremy noted, reviewing documents. She listed herself as primary caregiver to Walter, claimed financial dependency. Those are lies she personally made under penalty of perjury. Can we prove she knew they were lies? The hospice records show she visited Walter once in his final month. The financial records show you paid for everything. Her own social media shows her at spas and restaurants while Walter was dying. She knew exactly what she was doing. The criminal investigation gained momentum. The district attorney's office, smelling blood, assigned a prosecutor named Gerardo Gibbons, a bulldog known for hammering white-collar criminals. Gibbons called Thomas for an interview. They met at the prosecutor's office downtown, in a room with harsh fluorescent lights and legal documents stacked on every surface. Mr. Kirkpatrick, walk me through your relationship with your father, Gibbons said. Thomas did, carefully and completely. Walter's cancer, the hospice care, the final months, the time they'd spent together, the conversations they'd had. And your wife's involvement in his care? Minimal. She visited him in the hospital twice over 6 months. Once at hospice. She complained about the time I spent with him. Did she have any financial relationship with your father? None. Walter lived on his pension and Social Security. I covered his medical expenses. Gibbons made notes. So when she listed herself as having an insurable interest in his life, that was fraudulent. Completely. She had no relationship with him, financial or otherwise. The policy was taken out to profit from his death, nothing more. And you believe she forged his signature on the application? Thomas handed over the hospice records, the nurse's statement, handwriting analysis. Walter was incapacitated the day she visited. Heavy morphine, barely conscious. Sherry O'Neill, his nurse, said Vanessa asked for privacy. She was alone with him 15 minutes. That's when the signature was obtained. Gibbons smiled slowly. This is good work, Mr. Kirkpatrick. Most people don't come this prepared. I was a Marine. Marines prepare. I can see that. Gibbons closed his folder. We're going to prosecute. Insurance fraud, forgery, elder abuse. She's looking at serious time. Thomas nodded. He should have felt triumph. Instead, he felt empty. This wasn't justice yet. It was just process. But the real pressure was building elsewhere. Dana Figueroa called Thomas on Wednesday. He almost didn't answer. Vanessa's friend, calling him. But curiosity won. Thomas, I need to talk to you, Dana said, voice tight. About Vanessa. They met at a coffee shop in Shadyside, neutral territory. Dana looked nervous, checking over her shoulder like someone might be watching. What is this about, Dana? Vanessa's falling apart, Dana said. She's staying at my place, and she's saying things. Crazy things. Like what? Like she wants to hurt you. Get revenge. She's talking about burning down your office, or worse. Dana's voice dropped. Thomas, I think she might be serious. She's not stable. Thomas studied Dana. The woman had been Vanessa's loyal friend, part of the trio that enabled and encouraged her worst impulses. Why the sudden conscience? Why are you telling me this? Because I looked into what happened. The insurance thing, the credit cards. Thomas, I didn't know. I thought you were just another guy dumping his wife. But she's been lying to everyone, including me and Carmen. What else did she lie about? Dana hesitated. Then, she told us you were abusive, that you controlled her money, isolated her from friends, all that. But it's not true, is it? You gave her everything. She's the one who stole from you. Yes. And the thing at the funeral, I was there, Thomas. I heard what she said. It was disgusting. But she's been telling people you made it up, that we're all lying for you. Dana's voice cracked. I can't be part of this anymore. If she's going to hurt you or herself, someone needs to know. Thomas called Cameron immediately after Dana left. We might have a problem. Vanessa's making threats. Serious threats? Dana seems to think so. Can you put someone on surveillance? I want to know where Vanessa goes, who she talks to. Already done, Cameron said. I've had someone on her since the court hearing. She's been mostly at Dana's, but she went to a gun shop yesterday. Thomas felt ice in his stomach. Did she buy anything? No. Pennsylvania requires a background check for handguns, and her pending charges flagged the system. But Thomas, she tried. She's escalating. Then we need to end this. Fast. The next day, Jeremy filed for an emergency protective order based on Dana's statement and the gun shop visit. Judge Nolan granted it immediately, ordering Vanessa to stay away from Thomas, his home, and his business. But protective orders were just paper. Thomas knew that. He also knew Vanessa was desperate. Ricardo was gone, arrested finally on fraud charges, sitting in county jail, unable to make bail. The insurance money was gone. The divorce was going badly. Her friends were abandoning her. She was cornered, and cornered animals were dangerous. Chapter 8. The Final Play. Friday night. Thomas was working late at his office, a converted warehouse in Lawrenceville he'd renovated himself. His crew had gone home hours ago, leaving him alone with blueprints and coffee. The security alarm chirped. Thomas checked his phone. The motion sensor at the rear entrance had triggered. He called Cameron. Someone's here. I'm 10 minutes out. Get somewhere safe. Thomas moved to his office, locked the door, watched the security camera feeds on his computer. A figure in dark clothes was jimmying the rear door, working quickly and efficiently. Not Vanessa. The build was wrong, broader, taller. Male. Ricardo? No, he was in jail. The figure got the door open, slipped inside, moved through the warehouse with purpose, heading straight for the office area, like someone who knew the layout. Thomas recognized the walk before he saw the face. Ricardo's brother, Ricky Doty. A construction worker Thomas had fired 2 years ago for stealing tools. The family resemblance was strong. Same slick back hair, same cocky posture. Ricky carried something, a baseball bat. Thomas unlocked a desk drawer, pulled out the .45 he'd kept since his Marine days. He didn't want violence, but he wasn't dying in his own office. Ricky reached the office door, tried the handle, found it locked. Instead of leaving, he started smashing the door frame with the bat. "I know you're in there, Kirkpatrick," Ricky shouted. "You destroyed my brother. Took everything from him." "Your brother destroyed himself," Thomas called back. "Go home, Ricky. This won't help him." "Fuck you. He's in jail because of you. Vanessa told me everything. How you set him up, planted evidence, lies and lies. Vanessa is lying to you like she lied to everyone else." The door frame splintered. Ricky was strong, determined, fueled by whatever story Vanessa had fed him. Thomas moved behind his desk, weapon ready. "Ricky, I have a gun. I will use it if you come through that door. This is your last warning. You won't shoot. You're too much a pussy." The door gave way. Ricky burst through, bat raised, and froze when he saw the .45 pointed at his chest. "Get on the floor," Thomas said quietly. "Now." Ricky's bravado evaporated. He dropped the bat, hands rising. "Jesus, man, I just—" Floor. Face down. Hands behind your back. Sirens wailed outside. Cameron's security company had called the police when Thomas triggered the panic button. Within minutes, the warehouse was full of cops, and Ricky was in handcuffs. Cameron arrived as they were loading Ricky into a patrol car. "You good?" "Fine." Vanessa sent him. "You sure?" He said she told him everything. This was her play: get Ricardo's brother to hurt me, to scare me off. Thomas holstered his weapon. She's desperate enough to weaponize anyone she can reach. A detective took Thomas's statement. The story was clear: breaking and entering, assault with a deadly weapon, caught on camera. Ricky was going to jail, and probably for a while given his record. But the detective had more questions. "Mr. Kirkpatrick, do you believe your ex-wife orchestrated this attack?" "I do. We'll need to talk to her. But with the protective order, she'll deny any involvement." "Check his phone," Thomas said. "If they've been communicating, there will be records." The detective nodded. "We will. In the meantime, be careful. If she's willing to send someone after you once." Thomas drove to Cameron's house, too wired to sleep. They sat up drinking coffee, processing the evening. "She's going to prison," Cameron said. "Between the insurance fraud, the credit cards, and now conspiracy to commit assault, she's done." "Good. You don't sound happy about it." Thomas considered. "I'm not happy. I'm resolved. This needed to happen. But it's still sad. I married her, Cameron. I stood in front of God and our families and promised forever. Finding out the person you married is this broken, this cruel. There's no win in that." "Maybe not. But you protected yourself. You protected Walter's memory. And you made sure she couldn't hurt anyone else. That's something." Thomas nodded. His phone buzzed, a text from Jeremy Garrison. "Ricky Doty is talking. Gave up Vanessa completely. She promised him money from the insurance payout if he scared you into dropping charges. District attorney is adding conspiracy and solicitation charges. She'll be arrested tomorrow." Thomas showed Cameron the message. "It's over," Cameron said. "Almost," Thomas replied. "One more thing." Chapter 9. Ashes and Foundations. Saturday morning, Vanessa was arrested at Dana's apartment. The charges were extensive: insurance fraud, forgery, elder abuse, credit card fraud, conspiracy to commit assault. Her bail was set high enough that she couldn't make it. Thomas watched the news coverage from his office, which was being repaired after Ricky's break-in attempt. The same reporters who'd covered Vanessa's initial victim narrative now showed her in handcuffs, looking small and defeated. Dana Figueroa called him that afternoon. "Thomas, I'm sorry. For everything. I should have seen what she was. You saw what she wanted you to see. Vanessa was good at that. Still, if there's anything I can do—" "Actually, there is. Would you be willing to testify? About what she told you, the threat she made?" "Yes, absolutely." Carmen Dennis called an hour later with the same offer. Vanessa's friends, the ones who'd enabled her, were jumping ship. Thomas felt no satisfaction in that either, just exhaustion at how many people Vanessa had fooled. The divorce proceedings were swift after her arrest. Stuart Horn withdrew as her attorney, citing ethical concerns. Vanessa represented herself at the final hearing, appearing via video from the county jail. Judge Nolan was brisk. Mrs. Kirkpatrick, do you contest the divorce? No, Your Honor. Vanessa looked hollow, all her fire extinguished. The orange jumpsuit didn't help. Do you contest the property division? No. Given your criminal charges and fraudulent use of marital assets, I'm awarding Mr. Kirkpatrick sole ownership of the marital home and all business assets. Mrs. Kirkpatrick, you will receive nothing. Furthermore, you are liable for repayment of the $75,000 in credit card fraud to be paid upon your release from incarceration. Divorce granted. The gavel fell. 9 years of marriage ended in 5 minutes. Thomas walked out of the courthouse into crisp November air. Cameron and Franklin were waiting. Drinks, Cameron offered. Yeah, but first I need to do something. They drove to the cemetery. Thomas stood at Walter's grave, now marked with a simple headstone. Walter James Kirkpatrick, Marine, father, builder. 1942 to 2025. I handled it, Dad, Thomas said quietly. The way you taught me. Measure twice, cut once. She can't hurt anyone now. The wind rustled through the trees. Thomas felt for the first time in months like he could breathe. What's next? Franklin asked as they left the cemetery. Thomas thought about it. His company was strong, growing. He had friends who'd stood by him. He had his father's lessons, his own strength. Next, I build something new, Thomas said. That's what Kirkpatricks do. 6 months later, the trial was brief. Prosecutors Gerardo Gibbons presented an overwhelming case. Vanessa's attorney, a public defender named Wes Salazar, could only argue for mercy. The jury deliberated 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge, not Carol Nolan this time, but a senior judge named Wilson Salinas, was unmoved by Vanessa's tears. Mrs. Kirkpatrick, you exploited a dying man to profit from his death. You stole from your husband, then tried to destroy him when he discovered your crimes. You endangered multiple people through your conspiracy. This court finds your actions reprehensible and calculated. Sentencing, 8 years in state prison, with restitution of $2.1 million owed to Thomas and the insurance company. Thomas didn't attend the sentencing. He was at a job site, watching his crew frame a new community center funded by a grant he'd won. Building something useful, something lasting. Cameron called with the verdict. 8 years. She'll probably serve 5 with good behavior. That's fair, Thomas said. How do you feel? Honestly, I feel nothing about Vanessa anymore. She's a stranger, but I feel good about this. He gestured at the construction. Dad would have liked this project. Helping people, building something that matters. He'd be proud of you, brother. How you handled all this. Thomas considered. I hope so. I try to do it right. Not cruel, just. Ricardo Durham pleaded guilty to fraud charges to avoid trial. He got 6 years. His development company was dissolved, its assets sold to repay creditors. Ricky Doty took a plea deal, 3 years for breaking and entering an assault. He wrote Thomas a letter from prison, apologizing. Thomas never responded. Dana Figueroa and Carmen Dennis drifted away, their friendship with Vanessa revealed as shallow and transactional. Thomas heard through Franklin that Dana had started volunteering at a hospice center, trying to atone. Thomas sold the house he'd shared with Vanessa. Too many bad memories. He bought a smaller place near the river, with a workshop in the basement and room for Walter's belongings, the books, the tools, the photographs of a life well lived. He dated occasionally, but wasn't in a rush. The experience with Vanessa had taught him patience, discernment. He'd know the real thing when he found it. One evening, Thomas sat in his new house's living room, reviewing plans for the next project, a veterans housing development, honoring Walter's memory. Cameron stopped by with beer and takeout, their ritual now. You know what the best revenge is? Cameron asked, feet up on Thomas's coffee table. What? Living well.